The Wednesday Night Wars are now in their second week, and while AEW won last week's ratings battle, you can be sure NXT won't roll over and die. Join us now as WrestleLamia recaps and analyzes both shows, scoring them on wrestling, storylines, announcing, production values, and much more. Let's start off with All Elite Wrestling Dynamite, as AEW is coming to you from Boston, Massachusetts, as Tony Schiavone, Jim Ross and Excalibur are on hand to call all the action. The show opens up with a hype video airing for the Young Bucks, and then we get round one of the AEW World Tag Team Championship tournament between the Young Bucks and Private Party. The Young Bucks are the strong favourites going into the tournament, but shockingly, the Bucks are eliminated in the first round after Mark Quinn and Isaiah Cassidy pull off what has to be seen as a major upset. Quinn surprises Matt Jackson with a roll-up after Isaiah breaks up a Meltzer driver. Private Party are now in round 2 of the championship tournament. They'll either face the Lucha Brothers of Pentagon Jr. and Rey Fenix, or Jurassic Express of Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. After the break, the AEW World Heavyweight Champion is in the ring with Sammy Guevara, Santana and Ortiz, and Jake Hager. Jericho runs down the Elite and says his Inner Circle, the Inner Circle being the name of his new faction, proved their dominance over the Elite last week. Jericho praises his teammates, and when the fans chant "We the People" at Jake Hager, harkening back to his all-American gimmick in the WWE, Jericho reminds the fans that was a stupid gimmick due to a stupid creative team and it's dead. Hager is the toughest man in AEW and another member of the Inner Circle. Jericho runs down Cody and his family, stating he never liked Dusty and that he's gonna beat the shit out of Cody at Full Gear. Next up is a number 1 contenders match for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship as Darby Allin takes on Jimmy Havoc. It's a brutal bout as both men fought tooth and claw. Allin gets the win after he lands the over-the-top stunner, followed by the coffin drop. Darby Allin will now get a shot at the title. Next up is a women's tag team match as AEW Women's Champion Rhea and Dr. Britt Baker take on Sakura and Bea Priestley. Britt and the champ get the win after Baker submits Sakura. A hype video airs for Best Friends, scheduled to face SoCal Uncensored next week. The Best Friends are about to be interviewed when the lights go out and Shawn Spears is seen. What were you expecting? The Fiend? Next up, it's Jon Moxley vs Shawn Spears with Tully Blanchard by his side, as neither man holds anything back, but it's Mox who gets the win after a paradigm shift on Spears. Kenny Omega confronts Moxley on the entrance ramp, tossing him a barbed wire baseball bat while he holds a barbed wire broom. However, Pac blasts Omega from behind with a chair, and Moxley tells Pac to split, but decides he'll leave instead. It's now time for the main event of the night, as AEW World Champion Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara with Jake Hager take on Dustin Rhodes and Hangman Adam Page. Dustin and Page fall to that classic heel tactic, the numbers game, as Hager takes out Dustin with a clothesline, allowing Jericho to polish Rhodes off with the Judas effect. But you remember last week's wild brawl at the end of the show? Well, let's repeat it with Jericho and Sammy beating down Dustin while Page brawls with Hager. The lights go out and Cody surprises Jericho, but Santana and Ortiz run in to lend a hand. MJF comes in, but whose side is he on? MJF feigns joining the Inner Circle, but attacks the heels. The Inner Circle fight back, but Darby Allin turns the tide, skateboarding his way down to the ring and smashing the champion with a clothesline. Now wait, let's repeat that, like this guy actually skated down flawlessly to give Jericho a beatdown. So that's why announcers were referencing skateboards all damn night. It was probably one of the coolest run-ins we've ever seen in wrestling. But in the end, Jericho grabs the microphone and promises Allin will pay next week, promising, "It's your funeral, bitch." But that was a quick recap of AEW Dynamite. What about NXT? As NXT is coming from your usual Florida Full Sail University, with Mauro Ranallo, Nigel McGuinness and Beth Phoenix calling the action. The show opens up good, as it's the NXT Cruiserweight Championship match between Drew Gulak and Lio Rush. Bobby Lashley's former hype man fights with everything he has, following up a springboard cutter with a frog splash to become champion. Lio Rush is the new NXT Cruiserweight champion. Following the match, Gulak grabs the belt from Lio after William Regal puts it on the new champion, but Gulak hands it back to Rush with the two men shaking hands. Backstage, Kushida talks with Breezango, and elsewhere, the Imperium's leader Volta prepares for his main event matchup against Kushida. Next up, it's women's one-on-one, as Aaliyah, who's with Vanessa Bourne, takes on Rhea Ripley. Rhea is on a mission and she wins this one by submission. Ripley puts over NXT Women's Champion Shayna Baszler as a fierce opponent, but she's never beaten Ripley. The announcers mentioned this Friday's big WWE press conference in Las Vegas, featuring Tyson Fury, Braun Strowman, Brock Lesnar, Cain Velasquez, and Triple H. Breezango show up with a new gimmick, that of construction workers. No, Tony Schiavone doesn't say that'll put butts in the seats over on Dynamite. But next up it's tag team action as Breezango take on the Forgotten Sons. Tyler Breeze and Fandango are scheduled to fight Everrise, but Wesley Blake and Steve Cutler have other ideas, as Jackson Riker pulls off the old switcheroo. Fandango counts the lights after Cutler lands the memory that remains. Next up is Boa vs Cameron Grimes. Grimes squashed Boa with the double jumping stomp, but Boa's troubles are only beginning however, as Killian Dane runs in, powerbombing Boa repeatedly, then beating him up further, as he says this is just the beginning. There's a hype video that airs for Damian Priest, who tells everyone his attack on Pete Dunne was his way of making a name for himself. Backstage we see the various members of the Undisputed Era, and then we move on to the NXT North American Championship match, as champion Roderick Strong takes on Isaiah Scott. Scott seems to be on his way to a victory, but when Strong's Undisputed Era teammates show up, Scott is distracted, and Strong steals the win, locking in the Stronghold. After the match, Velveteen Dream shows up and tells Strong he'll be facing him in 2 weeks for the North American title. To make matters worse, Tommaso Ciampa enters the ring with a chair as the Undisputed Era get to step in. Tommaso mocks Adam Cole, and the Undisputed Era aren't in a rush to stop him. Next up, a hype video airs for the ongoing saga between Kushida and Walter, and backstage Angel Garza gets in Ciampa's face, only to get clobbered for his insolence. Next up is one-on-one women's action as Bianca Belair takes on Dakota Kai. It's not Kai's night as Bianca hits the KOD for the win. Afterwards, Belair gets on the stick and tells Rhea Ripley anyone looking for an NXT women's title match has to go through her first. A hype video airs for Finn Balor, and Lio Rush is seen celebrating his title win. Pete Dunne also promises payback for Damian Priest. But then we get the main event as NXT UK Heavyweight Champion Walter takes on Kushida in a non-title match. Kushida unfortunately comes up short as Walter hits a short arm clothesline for the victory. Kathy Kelly announces Tommaso Ciampa will face Angel Garza next week, and Velveteen Dream challenges Roderick Strong in 2 weeks for the North American Championship. Walter is joined by the rest of the Imperium on the entrance ramp as NXT closes out. But that was a quick recap of both shows. What about the scorecard? Who won week 2 of the war? Let's start off with the opening, as both programs started off with strong matches, but NXT's Cruiserweight Championship bout gave NXT the edge over AEW's tag team match. This might be strongly debated over what you personally prefer, but we just love pure Cruiserweight action. So NXT gets the point in the opening. Next up, Star Power. Now if the WWE wants to use stars like Finn Balor to boost NXT's ratings, they should use him right away rather than putting him in hype videos. Everyone watching NXT knows who he is, so why are they promoting him, unless he's still enjoying his WWE vacation? Either way, the WWE is still behind AEW in recognizable stars. One thing is for sure though, is that Jericho brings the star power in AEW and makes the championship feel so much more important. AEW gets the point in this round. Next up, wrestling. It feels like NXT has been gracious enough to give us takeover-like shows, in terms of wrestling, for both weeks consecutively. The action was strong in just about every bout, and the main event was the pièce de résistance, and even though he lost, this was one of Kushida's best matches in NXT. So NXT gets the point in this round. But what about announcing? Now NXT continues to provide good announcing that does everything it's supposed to do, i.e. get over storylines and characters, but they still come short to the dynamic duo of Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross, with Excalibur serving as guest hero. JR still delivers lines perfectly like, they're chanting what they like, what they wanted, what they needed, when AEW chants were echoing throughout the arena. He still proves to be one of the best in the business. So AEW gets this point. Let's move on to storytelling, as NXT upped its storytelling this week, adding a few interviews and hype videos to better explain what's going on over at Full Sail University. Still, AEW had solid storylines, and other than the women's tag team match, every match served a purpose in forwarding storylines. NXT was damn close, but it still fell to AEW. We also love the fact that MJF, who is technically heel, is best friends with a babyface Cody. It's a stark contrast to WWE where heels always hang around with other heels, so why can't we get a mix? It reminds us of Luger and Sting in mid-90s WCW, when Luger tried to pretend to be a babyface in front of Sting, but go full-on heel once his back was turned. Pure gold. We would do production values, but until NXT moves to a different facility, we won't waste your time comparing the two promotions' production values. So no scores are given here. Let's move on to excitement and suspense, as other than Lio Rush's title win and Tommaso Ciampa confronting Adam Cole, tonight's NXT episodes seem to be business as usual. That may work for its core audience, but new fans had little to be enthused about watching NXT. AEW by comparison offered another strong show, and it's seriously got to take the point after that skateboard run-in. Seriously, we haven't seen anything like that before. And lastly, time management. Again, both programs what they do best, focusing on their core values with AEW mixing storytelling and ring work, and NXT concentrating on work rate. As noted earlier, both shows started with strong matches, and neither showed any errors with time management. So it's a tie here and no scores are given. This leads us to the final result being 4-2 to AEW in Week 2. Ultimately, AEW is in the catbird seat, and while the promotion certainly has room for improvement, its women's division being a major weakness, its overall product continues to shine. The Young Bucks putting over Private Party tonight showed the company is willing to get other acts over besides their executive vice presidents. NXT on the other hand needs a little bit of work to get eyeballs watching, but as history has shown, a ratings war is typically a long-range war, so don't expect NXT to disappear in the near future. But there you have it guys, your scorecard for Week 2 of the Wednesday Night War. Did you watch either or both shows? If so, what did you guys think of them? Be sure to leave your comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.